Now it's time to start thinking about putting some materials on our little robot character. At this stage they're only really placeholders, and we're using them to create the material slots that we'll need when we get him into Unreal Engine. But it also makes it easier to work with because we know what he will look like when he gets into Engine. So we'll start with creating some fairly basic materials in this step. But the first thing I'm going to do is just make my workspace a little easier to view by getting rid of these image planes. They've served their purpose now. So I'm going to click on Show, and I can now just click here for image planes, or you can see I can press Alt and 4 as well to get rid of them. Now what I'm going to need is my Hypershade. So let's open that up. And I just want to make sure that I can see the Stingray PBS is available in my Hypershade menu. If it's not, you need to load the plugin, Google how to do that, or drop a comment below the video if you're not sure how to do that. But there you go, I can see that Stingray's there for me, so that's no problem. I'm also just going to add a viewport to my Hypershade so that I can see what I'm doing. So we'll go to Window, Viewport, oh interesting, and I want to drop this just here. Where did Create go? Ah, there we go. So now I'll just make that viewport a little bit bigger, and I'm going to press 6 so that I can see when I apply my materials. The first material we'll create is going to be a glossy white plastic, something that looks very Apple from the early 2000s. So we'll create a new Stingray PBS for that. I'm going to name all of these, so we're going to call this M_white. The M denotes that this is a material. And then we just create what we want here. So I want it to be white, so we'll drag that slider all the way across. And I want it to be glossy, so we're going to drop the roughness all the way down. And that's basically it. That's all we need to do there. And then we can apply that to all the elements of our model that need the glossy plastic. So I'm just going to drag and drop it with my middle mouse button onto the parts of the model that I intend to have this material. And for the hands, to save myself a job, I'm just going to select all the pieces like that, and we'll just right click and do Assign Material to Selection. And same on this side, Assign Material to Selection. And for the head, even though I don't want the glossy material on the screen, I'm just going to drop it on everything for now, and then we'll overwrite the screen later when we create that. That's the first material created and applied then. The next one we want is the metallic looking one. So let's clear our work area. We'll create a new Stingray. I'm going to call this one M_chrome, which is just going to be a nice shiny metal for us. So our base colour wants to be a shade of grey, but we might change that. The metallic we're going to change to 1. You see that makes a big difference straight away. And the roughness is going to come down because we want this to be really shiny. Something like that looks nice. And then you can experiment with the different base colours. I want it to be quite a light colour, so we'll try that. And then, as I did before, I need to apply this to the parts of the model that needs it. So these two here. Also those. These parts of the leg. And these here. And finally, I think we just need them on the antenna. Okay, that's coming together. Just realised that because this is a new viewport, it's showing me the image plane, so I'm just going to turn those off because I don't need them in this view either. There we go. And the last material I will need is going to be like a black sort of rubbery kind of material. So we'll clear our workspace again. We're going to have another Stingray. We're going to call it M_rubber. There we go. So this one's going to be black, and I'm just going to take it slightly so that it's not perfectly black. And then the roughness needs to be a bit higher. Let's try 0.7. Pretty nice. I might actually just bring the colour down a touch. Yeah. And then we just need to assign this to the remaining pieces. So it's mostly going to be these joining pieces. And then just get his little tummy. And we're going to assign material to selection. There we go. So now let's just minimize our Hypershade for a second and see if we're happy with him. So you can see I'm not seeing any materials here yet, and that's because I still have the shaded view on, which is this one here, smooth shade all. What I really need is the textured view. So you can click on the icon there, or just press 6 on your keyboard, and that'll bring that through. So you can see we've got our metallic areas, we've got the white glossy areas, and we've got the black rubber looking areas. So that will do it for this step then. In the next one, we're going to work on the face, and for that we're going to need to bring in a texture, do some simple UV mapping, create the material, and then apply it to those faces. So let's move on to that. Now what we're going to do is create the material that we're going to put on the screen or the face of this character. And this is actually quite important for the character because he's quite a simple character. The only way we can give him any kind of personality or emotion is going to be through what we put on there. And it's just going to be cute eyes for now, but we could do more with this going forward. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that we've got the textures. So I've got here head texture, and I've got the Photoshop file that I used to create it as well. What I'm going to do is put those in the appropriate folder. So I'm just going to cut where they are. This is the project folder that I'm sharing with you. So you'll be able to find these in the source images folder. So there you go. We've got the front side top image that we used right at the beginning. And now I'm going to paste into here the head texture. And yep, I know that that's moved. So there we go. Head texture. These are the eyes that we're going to use. So make sure that you get the textures from the link in the description, or that you create your own so that you're ready for this next step. Back into Maya then, and we're going to go back into our Hypershade. Here it is. Clear the workspace, and in fact before we create the material we're going to UV map the head. So let's go into face mode, and really all we need to do is select all the faces that make up the screen. And the easiest way to do that is just select the ones in the middle and then press shift and full stop to do a greater than selection. And you can see that that then goes exactly where you need it to be. So I'm just going to see how far. Yes, I'm just going to bring that back once with a less than. So that's pretty much all the faces that make up the face or the screen. Okay, so now I'm going to do a UV projection. So just quickly, I'm going to go into my UV editing workspace, and that's because it'll show me this here, and I need to just make sure that I've got these faces that just take up the 0 to 1 space. So we're going to go to UV, and we're going to do a planar projection, and it looks like it's going to be on the Z axis because that's the axis that looks like it's cutting through the face. So we'll click on project, and there we go. That's now created a projection of the face. If we only select those faces, that'll be perfect. So that's the head UV map. That was nice and straightforward. Back into object mode. And then I'm going to go back to my modeling standard view. And this brings my Hypershade back for me, which is what I wanted. So what we'll do now is create a new Stingray PBS. We'll call this M_screen. Rename that. And this time we need to use a color map. And that's going to be our texture. So we'll get that first of all. So there's color map. We need to scroll down. Here's where we can apply the texture. So we'll click on this little checker box here. This takes us through to file 4 is what it's called here. And I can click on this folder next to image name and choose head texture.png. There it is. Open. And that creates the material. And now what I want to do is just make sure that I'm happy with the other properties for it. So let's just change this from sphere to plane. Okay, so then what we'll do is click back on here, and I'm just going to have a look at the roughness of this. I don't want it to be very rough. I want it to look kind of like it's got a shiny glass screen. So we'll go for something like that. And we're going to leave it here for now, but I think we will come back to this material in a second. So what we need to do now is go back into face mode. And luckily for me, that face selection's still there. But if it's not, remember you can just get the 1, 2, 3, 4 faces that make up the middle, and then do a shift and full stop to get a greater than selection to make sure you get all of those. And then with our M_screen material, we can right click and assign material to selection. And that will give him his fabulous little face. Look at that guy go. So we'll just minimize the Hypershade for a sec, have a look at him in all his glory. Not bad. And this is where we're going to get to this final change. So we want this to look like a screen, but the eyes are quite dim. and screens emit their own light, so we want our screen material to mimic that same effect. So we'll go back into our Hypershade then, make sure that we've got our M_screen selected, and we're also going to use an emissive map, so we'll tick that box there. We're going to connect the same texture to that emissive map, so head texture, and already this looks a little bit glowier. We'll click back on here again, and then what we're going to look for is emissive intensity, and now we can use this slider, and you should be able to see that happening. As we make the slider go up, it makes the eyes look brighter, and it goes to 1, but I think you can type higher numbers in there. So there you go. If you want to make it 10, they can seem really bright. I think that's overkill. Let's go for something like 2. So go between 0 and 2. Yeah, and 2 looks quite nice. So again, this is just for preview purposes really. We're going to rebuild this material when we get to Unreal Engine. But for now, we want to know how he's going to look as we're animating him. So this gives us a good impression of that. Okay, so we can close the Hypershade now. So this is our little chap with his materials on. We've completed another chapter. Well done you. So moving forward, in the next chapter and the next few steps, we're going to be rigging this guy, which means giving him a skeleton and then assigning the different parts of the mesh to the skeleton, making sure that that skeleton has controllers and that he's ready to animate. So I look forward to seeing you for more fun. I'm able to continue making these videos thanks to the ongoing support of my amazing Patreon community. If you'd also like to support Game Dev Academy via Patreon, then check out the link in the description below. Thank you.